Welcome to the Parousia Podcast, inviting expert guest speakers each week to discuss their own faith journey, as well as a different aspect of the Catholic faith, every Wednesday morning at 8 a.m, live on the Voice of Charity.
Good morning and welcome to another Parousia Podcast. My name is Matthew Hermann-Tague. So the first thing you'll notice is that I'm not Sharbel Reish. I am the events coordinator and social media manager for Parousia, and apparently another role that's fallen into my lap is podcast host. And the reason I'm here today instead of Sharbel is that Sharbel Reish and Christine, his wife, are expecting baby number 8. And so they are well and truly on standby. We've gone past the due date, so it's any time now. So Sharbel is looking after his wife, as is his duty. And here am I filling in. So let's get started. As many of you know, Parousia has just started what we call Support Your Priest Sunday, a campaign that we're going to run every single year. It consists of a novena leading up to the feast of St. John Vianney. And the Sunday closest to that feast day is what we call Support Your Priest Sunday, where we invite people to not only pray for their priests, but also look after them in some way. And that could be with a gift or a lunch or even just a coffee. And so for today's Parousia podcast, we thought, well, how better than to support our priesthood than to talk to a priest and find out all about priesthood. And so it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you Fr John Kady. Father, how are you?
Hi, Matthew. Hi, listeners.
Very good.
Thank you for the opportunity. I will thank Sharbel Reish because originally he spoke to me and invited me to the show. Or podcast, let's say, and thank our viewers also. I hope everyone's been keeping safe, like everyone's real time, this era of expression, of caring for others. So, Matthew, what do you want from me?
Well, first we should find out where you are. I myself am at home down in Nowra, about 2.5 hours south of Sydney. And where are you speaking to us from, Father?
Mount Druitt, the LGA of Blacktown, where everyone knows now we are under lockdown, strict lockdown.
Yep. Yes.
So I'm in Australia home base, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
The Lebanese Maronite Missionary's monastery. Close to St. John the Beloved and the Voice of Charity home base too, or studio head.
Indeed, very, very close, in fact, kind of an adjoining property. Is that correct?
Stone throw.
Yes.
Away.
And you have a magnificent church there. I've been up to the Voice of Charity many times. I've seen the church. I've even prayed morning prayer from the Liturgy of the Hours in that church. It has great acoustics, by the way. So
thank you.
Well done to the community on that one. But tell us more about the monastery. It's close by.
It's close by. It's been now 2 years established and opened and consecrated, if you want, inaugurated. Use all the words you want.
Mm-hmm.
So it took a while to build, not too much, it was not bad, a lot of contribution, a lot of support, community support. And we find because we were so much living out of a handbag, as you would say, or traveler's bag, until that moment, finally we got something official and permanent, God willing. So established up the road from St. John the Beloved, or our backyard, you would say, is very well connected.
Indeed.
This beautiful forest, I would say, protected land.
Mm.
Yeah, we feel like we bought that with the property.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
It's a nice, and it does contribute. We have the solitude, even though we're in the middle of everything. So that it captures that. It's beautiful. It's ideal for a religious life.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is.
And you've already mentioned that you're missionaries. So what is the order you belong to, Father?
The congregation of the Lebanese Maronite missionaries. I would say nicknamed Kraimist or Kraimiye, which is actually, if you want to go to the origin of the word, it's in Arabic. It means, you know how a normal sized book, what would you call an ordinary book? Okay, when it's a little book, you call it booklet.
Yes.
Yeah, well, you know how you say a vine, it's big. Yeah. A little vine, you call, that's what you call karaimi. Karam is a vine, karaimiye or is a little vine. Really? So on our land in home base, which is the picture behind the back set, or the backdrop, that is our home base in Lebanon, Middle East. Okay. So that's called, we have a vineyard, a little vineyard right around it on the land. Yeah, so everyone used to identify us from that vineyard.
Right.
As missionaries. Okay. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So that's what you'd call the order's mother house. Is that correct?
Yes, that's mother house.
That's
where we launched from, and that's where we end up resting in.
Wonderful.
Because the burial in the Middle East is still pretty much in monasteries and whatever. It's on the land of where your home base is usually.
I see. And so our listeners can Google that. Where exactly in Lebanon is it?
In Ghusta or Batha, which is above the very famous Our Lady of Lebanon.
Right.
That mountain up there above Juni. Juni is the stronghold of the Christians, not Christians to be exact. And up on the cliff, about, say, 800 meters, you have Our Lady of Lebanon, Grotto, the very famous Our Lady of Lebanon. Everyone knows her. And everywhere we go in Lebanon, we establish our link there or representation of that location. It's worldwide known. And we're about a few kilometers, about 2 kilometers away from that area up there in the Middle East.
Okay. And so you've mentioned being a missionary, you've mentioned being a traveler. I am picking up an accent there, Father. So I'm guessing you're not originally from Australia. Are you from Lebanon?
An accent. Okay, very good. Well, put it this way. I was about 4 years old.
Yeah.
When we traveled here. Let's say, I'm about to reveal my age here, like you. I think we're probably on the same dial.
I'd say we're fairly close, yes.
Yeah, I might say. Or maybe not. Let's see. We migrated in 1967.
Right.
To Australia, my family. So, I was around 4 years old, 4 or 5 years old. If there is an accent, because of the how would they say your first language? It's called what your mother language is, what you speak at home. Pretty much Arabic. We used to call it Lebanese until I had more information about this.
Yes.
Arabic is Arabic. Instead of saying I speak Australian, I speak English, for example.
Yes, of course. Yes. My own father's Scottish, and both of my grandparents brought the family out in probably around a similar time, late 50s, early 60s. And my grandfather was from Glasgow, so he had that rough, guttural sort of accent.
What happened to it?
Right? And my grandmother was from Campbelltown, so she had that West Coast or sing-song type accent, and they never lost their accents. But of course, it had an effect on me growing up, being around them a lot. So I have this kind of confused accent because I also then went and lived in the UK for 3 years. So I'm one of those strange Australians who actually enunciates his words.
If you feel you hear an accent on my behalf, because I love mimicking too. So if
Yeah.
I'm speaking to someone, I automatically start to tune into how they express things too. I have that
Yeah.
little, it's a little gift. I find it is a gift.
It tends to come with a musical ear, I
Uh,
believe.
yeah.
Yeah.
So when I speak Arabic,
Hmm.
I really delve in and I put on that front, if you want to call it that, a
Okay.
Lebanese, a full-on Lebanese front. I think it came with the fact that I have this gift of tuning in or tapping into the cultural mindset,
Yeah.
and that's what I think one of the things that incorporates discovering how they speak and how they use words,
Mm.
pronouns, etc., even poetry,
Yeah.
which is the richness of any society
Yeah. Amen.
in art and language, yeah, and literature. So
Yeah.
I think that helps. It helps me, yeah. If you want to talk Aussie, here we go. If you want to, let's go.
You can do that
Because
accent as well.
I grew up in Maryland's West.
Okay.
Started off in Guildford, Maryland's West. Went to Patrician Brothers Granville.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay.
then in my working days, we shifted or moved to Greystanes, the famous, beautiful Greystanes, which I miss badly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they're the places, and this is going back like in 80s, 70s,
Back a
80s.
while. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were baptized Maronite Catholic.
That's for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
In
was that
Lebanon,
an
I was
infant?
baptized in Lebanon. Yes,
Was that an infant baptism?
yes, yes. I'm
Yep.
a born Catholic, if you want to call it that.
Yep.
Cradle, cradle
Yes.
Catholic, without the other connotations,
Of course.
because after the awakening, yeah,
Yep.
we'll come to that sooner or later. I
Well,
suppose I can feel that
I,
you're heading that way. I don't know how.
I think that's where we're at now. So you've clearly been born into a Catholic family, but
Mhm.
as with most, there's always a point in one's journey where the faith is kind of Catholic light. You know, it's a cultural thing, but for many of us, there's a point where suddenly the lightning strikes and something happens and we start to take our faith seriously. Could you tell us
Mhm.
about that moment for you, Father?
That moment of waking up to my faith, it is, well, put it this way, it wasn't an easy ride.
Ah,
No. Being born into an Oriental Catholic, Maronite, Middle Eastern, was, of course, like every religion or faith, it's culturally grounded because
mhm,
culture is a vessel actually in itself, how it carries into with tradition, with the way we do things, and the the heart, the plantation of the church of that of the Oriental background, etc., or any other culture, or Byzantine or whatever. It's that planting, the way they um, plant the seed, and through like Old Testament, like now till now, the Jews, how they somehow give formation to their children, and they just
mhm,
recite all the
mhm.
quotes, etc. That continuation, what happens? It, it inevitably plants a seed that waiting to sprout, but it needs the conditions and the environment for that sprout. And this
Yes.
is the thing where mine was. It was a strange thing. I think I can see it in many saints where you encounter bad, evil, difficulties, hardship. This is what happened to me, even though I thought I was like, my environment is what it is, Lebanese, Middle Eastern. You get reminded every time when you go to school and when you change setting.
Hmm. Hmm.
So without further say, so in that in itself wasn't a big issue for me. I
Mm.
knew how to sort of handle myself and how to sort of also refer and communicate on all levels. It didn't worry me whatsoever. But the
Mm.
thing is, we were going to a Latin church or Australian Catholic church, which was down the road, Maryland's Road, St. Margaret Mary's. If anyone knows that place. That's where I was going with my parents. And I was, all I knew was that Mass in itself, the Australian Mass, the Latin original Mass, origin, yes. Translated and probably tweaked, let's add. Nevertheless, that was my setting. And even at school, when I went to Patrician Brothers itself, because I was in a public primary school first in Maryland's West, then moved to, like I said, to Patrician Brothers. And the Holy Trinity Church was our church for that school. And from that, that's all I knew. I was never exposed to or went to a Maronite Mass before at that time, or wasn't aware of it, let's add, because it didn't stand out, whatever it is. I don't know what it was, maybe. My parents never drove. They didn't have a car. So maybe that's probably one of the main reasons. It's that when I started to drive, I started to go to work and earn a bit. And then I used to take them every Sunday until the moment, then I was in the workforce around that time, trying to make ends meet or trying to make a future for myself. I had a few things until I was confronted by someone in it's called El Toro's Pizza Parlor. Really? On the Western Highway before the M4. We never heard of M4 at that. It was mentioned. I think it was established from Blacktown up to Penrith. That part of the M4 at that time.
Yeah.
All traffic used to go through the Western Highway, and they used to pass on the El Toros, and I'd work there on the weekends until this guy my employer. He questioned me. You ready for it? He questioned me. Do you believe there's a God?
Nice.
That in itself, in a workspace and whatever, he confronted me with it. I started to think. No, actually, he asked me about Jesus. He actually asked me about Jesus. He was specific. He asked me, "Do you believe in Jesus Christ?" I had no idea who he was, what he is, in that sense, his background. All I know is my employer. I said to him, I was stunned. Don't get confused, anyone. I was stunned, and I said, Jesus. I came to my senses. I said, no. No, I didn't say no about that, but I said, I believe that God definitely exists. That Jesus, Bible, written by humans, that's exactly what I assimilated. I wanted to be politically correct. Funny that it has a part of it. I didn't want to sort of, sell everything else. Or sure. I said, I'm not sure. I'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
But as far as I know, I believe truly God exists. Why I said that, and I with confidence. It's not just that I'm just saying it from the top of my head, and this is like a common thing with everyone, just like a cradle Catholic receives. I said, because I had an encounter. I had a original encounter first. And one clear, beautiful night, starry night, I would add. It's a bit hard. It's very rare to get that in out west.
Yes, in Western Sydney.
In Guildford. Say Guildford. And at a cousin's house. See, cousins, we use the word cousins ever, like a true bro and what have you, because of the fact of the cultural setting here. And actually, by the way, I found out, this is just on the side, of the books, I found out that most of the Christians, Maronite, Byzantine, etc., they use the word bro, something from the Middle East, not from America, the Black Lives mentality, that they use the word bro. They exchange with bro, mate, like you would use mate here.
Yes.
But the Muslim home communities, I would say, they use Habib. I noticed that. It's interesting because, but I use both because Habib is from the original word of mate or love, like you'd use the word love. Agam love.
Interesting.
Yeah, something like that.
That's what it means. Thank you.
But anyway, let's go back to this.
Yes.
Back to my encounter with my Lord on a starry night. I went to my cousin's house. No one was home. I had access to the back. I went to the balcony, rested, and I just gazed.
Mm.
And that day, I think, or that week, we went through science, astronomy to be exact.
Wow.
And we were informed that our sun isn't the biggest star.
Mm.
And they gave us distinctions like something that would distinguish what's the hottest stars. It would be a blue, etc., etc. And they're massive. And the light traveled so many years and years to reach here over there. And at that moment, I actually was reflecting on science. I was reflecting how big those stars could be. Then all in that same moment, I saw how small I was.
Awesome.
And there, yes. And actually my heart, you see, the connection and the harmony between mind, spirit, and the physical, the psychological, all together at once. It was one. And,
that is awesome.
And my heart signed and sealed that fact, and I took it to be so true.
That's
and
awesome.
that's why I answered him with confidence, and that gentleman, my employee.
Okay,
employer.
so because of that experience, you were able to say, yes, I believe in a God, but at that point, Jesus was still a sticking point for you.
Yes.
So how did that change?
How did that change me? Well, like every challenge or curiosity, put it that way. Remember, we lost grace by abusing our curiosity. So self-fulfillment without God, I would add, the book of Genesis, the beginning. Remember, in the beginning. So my beginning to discover Jesus was after that question, after that challenge, I would call it. I read the Bible. I'd ask all our listeners and viewers who read the Bible from cover to cover over a question, a challenge. I read it from cover to cover twice.
Wow,
at my pace, in my comfort zone, on my bed, laying down. So that from that day forward, I took my Bible off the shelf. Actually, I took my sister's Bible that we received from the Catholic schools.
Yep.
The Revised Version. It had the cover. The cover has a picture of portraying the resurrection, I think, or something like that.
All right. Does she still hold a grudge?
I don't.
That theft?
I think she's jealous now, not a grudge.
All right.
I put it to use.
You did indeed.
Yes. In my pursuit to understand the Bible, to pursue who this Jesus is, literally, simply because of that gentleman. He was an Armenian Palestinian, actually.
Right.
Yeah. Gary, to be exact. And nevertheless, I should give him some sort of credit, even though I found out he was not up to any good. So on that note, I started to read the Bible from cover to cover. I started to take it literal at the beginning. It's normal. And when I see it happening, it's normal. I never get sort of encountered by people taking things literal because I was there. And in my journey, when I started reading, and I'm very reflective. I only found out about 5 years ago that there's my methodology of reflection. There's apparently it's been formed, and it's a discipline to the Augustinians. So I would reflect, and I would see myself, picture myself, imagine myself in each character of the event or storyline, etc., etc. So as I would be reading, reflecting, first I would be looking at, say, Noah and what happened. and move on to Moses, Abraham. This is gold, the Abraham story. They're moving on, receiving the Ten Commandments, then further and further, and until the fullness of time. Then John the Beloved. My name originally isn't John.
Right.
My name is Fr John, but my full name is Fr John Elias. Elias and Kady is the surname. John Elias is my first name.
I see.
Yeah, because my original name is Elias. And I didn't want to, because I wanted to carry my parents' contribution with me in my journey of consecration. I left the name Elias in tribute to my parents because they, I'll come to that sooner or later. Hopefully, I wonder if I better ask Jesse, do we have enough time?
We've still got just over 20 minutes.
Yeah, and as I was reading and reflecting, I got to St. John the Beloved take or contribution on his reflections, his life, his connection with Jesus. It was intriguing. He's very polemic. There was always a fight between dark and light, etc. And rightfully so, the intro, the prologue is wild, is very catchy. I sing it every night, not sing or close enough to reflect on it. Every night. It's to me, it's become my motto, my thanking John the Beloved for helping usher me in deep to know Jesus. I realized in between the apostles why he was named Beloved is the fact that he was very receptive to God's promptings, the Holy Spirit's promptings in his life. Jesus entered his life at the time when he was very dependent on his parents. He was young, I would say. And usually the young are still dependent and trusting, regardless of the contradictions that parents may portray or give or do or perpetrate or purport.
Yes.
So regardless, they're still trusting, you know what I mean? And Jesus entered his life, and that dependency, that state of not being sort of suspicious and whatever, and doubting, he naturally shifted his dependency to Jesus. And therefore, that is a highway of grace. Highway of grace, being dependent on God and being heart and mind. So as I was always reflecting, this is where I encountered the Lord, especially in the passage of where Jesus was arrested and he was being interrogated and how would you call it? In front of Pilate. He stand before Pilate.
Yeah.
And before that, I even reflected on the fact that he willfully, because he had all the power not to be arrested. How he willfully, this took me over. I was like, who could do that? These are the questions I was always asking myself.
Yeah.
Who can do that? And he stand before Pilate after he's demonstrating that he has power over him to determine his freedom or his persecution or his sentence to death, which is ironic because later on he washes his hands. And that, me reflecting on that movement, if you want to call it that, this is where my mind and heart all opened up and submit. I couldn't deny here. This is beyond.
Wow.
I could usually people before death. You're either crazy or you're divine, because if you can keep your cool. This is the thing where my psychology, which was very basic at the time, I concluded he is wow. And for him to claim, and you can't ask people to. They're the little signs for me that sort of help you come to a conclusion.
Yeah.
And there and then, actually, my Lord appeared to me.
Wow.
My naked eye couldn't see him. My naked ear didn't hear him. But I knew he was there, and I heard him clearly as. So So I don't know how you're going to explain that, but I can't explain it better than that.
Yeah. Yeah, I do
All
understand.
those years, this is I woke up my encounter in the Bible and thereafter.
Yeah. And so
And
it's those, it's
in
the
the
falling
quarter,
of the scales from the eyes, isn't it?
yeah. And you want to know what he asked me? What he spoke
Yeah,
to me?
please.
What he asked all the apostles
Really?
when he sharked them, when he looked for them.
Come follow me.
Follow me. First, he asked me. It was a question. It was posting as a question. I knew I had to answer.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I came. I was in this. The feeling I had in his presence is like, wow. I wish it and I dream it often. If I can feel it again.
Yep.
Because we are grounded in flesh. And we are very physical in many ways. We're spirited flesh, and it keeps me anxious because it also ignites a parousia in itself.
Yes.
But nevertheless, I came to my. I was not came to my senses. I came to myself to the point where I'm inquiring, and I need to give an answer here. And what came to me, a flood of information. I wasn't able to sort of articulate too much, except the fact that I'm going to suffer if I was to follow him.
Yeah,
that was a clear message. Now, I was disheartened for a second, but my Lebanese mind, pride, follow what you want, my spirit, I gathered my senses. I pulled my act together.
Yep.
I want to call it that. And I turned around back to him, my Lord, my God. And I said, I answered, this is what still I don't have no idea because I wasn't that good in Arabic. The only Arabic I knew, I've never read, I didn't write. The house chores, when mums and that ask you to do this and do that kind of language. That's all I knew. My grammar, my pronouns were very limited.
Right.
But I answered in formal Arabic, and this is me. To me, I'm just still bewildered as much as anyone could. I said to him, "Na'am," because a quick normal yes. What would be a formal yes in English, in the Old English?
Oh, I don't even know.
Affirmative.
Yes, affirmative. Yes, forsooth, I agree.
Yes, yeah. I answered him, "Naam." Yes. And then he went. And
wow.
I lost. I felt that what I was feeling. I felt it just leaving. I felt that good feeling leaving me.
Wow.
Why?
And at this moment in this experience, was this question to follow him by taking your faith more seriously, or was priesthood encapsulated in that question at that time?
No,
not at that time. Okay.
No. I found it strange in itself, but I was more God receptive. This is, right. I think, John at work in my life now.
Yeah.
St. John, his contribution in my journey. I was. And the funny thing is, when I read the Bible from cover to cover before this encounter, is I would very, very literal in my reading and everything. After my encounter, I was having access to answers. The being able to distinguish also, which was disciplined later at uni at the CIS in Stratfield. Yep. I was more my tools practical Catholic thinking, my tools to organize and to help my philosophy be more articulated and informed, to communicate rationally my faith, was formed more. So what happens when I started to read the Bible again, I was able to actually delve into and receive the truths, the spiritual, the analogies, historical, okay, and the gift of what God has gifted humanity to, psychology.
Wonderful.
To use also psychology.
Yep.
In also being able to for example, this psychology is the quickest way to achieve or to get to know our Lord from the narrative, from the scripture, is focusing or homing on the attitude. His attitude towards others. And how Jesus also, everything he was doing, he attributed to his Father.
Yeah, wow.
He always had a reference.
Yeah.
He never referenced himself. If he does reference himself, it says, even though my judgment is just. But he still kept saying it's for his Father.
Yeah, awesome.
He was going about his Father's will. So all that, I was able to, through those tools, all that. Now I was actually having access. I felt more at peace instead of having some anxiety and the fearfulness of the events.
Yep.
Yeah. And even so, the moral, even I was able to understand the difference between the morality, I would say, of the Old Testament, of the people on a personal level.
Yeah.
Because, it doesn't take away the plan of salvation that was always the theme and everything coming through. But also I was like more person-centered.
Yep.
Yeah. Like I said, that style of contemplation.
Yeah,
So
wow.
with psychology, it gave me access a lot.
Awesome. And you mentioned too that you became very open to the idea of suffering and suffering willingly for Christ, because of course we don't get the resurrection without the crucifixion, do we, Father?
Yeah, that's for sure. But the thing is, I even discovered later, God did not create us, because that is also a problematic question about God wills us to suffer. No, apparently no, of course not. God is definitely love. If that was the case, then poor John the Beloved.
Indeed.
He missed out. Or Mary, for that matter.
Yeah.
Her suffering, she suffered because living God's love, the divine love on earth, the Lord's love on earth, a broken world is a broken world. Love aches hardly. Because you're dealing with naiveness, dealing with many things that aren't understanding. That's why Jesus was not naive. That's why he was able to see. That's why he's easy. It's from his heart he forgave, because he can see. And that's why he invited us to love our enemies, meaning if I can't love my enemies, even though what they did is 100% and red-handed, proven, how are you going to, the justice says this.
Yeah. Yeah.
How to love. And that was the thing. Yeah. So the Lord, knowing the Lord come in, it's not about suffering in itself. Suffering comes across, it's our heart.
Yeah.
How much we're attached to this world brings it on. No one realizes it, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay.
Any questions on that note? Because the reality is that's a big topic in itself.
There's so many questions on that topic. We might have to get together another time just to discuss that topic. But I really do want to hear about when you were called to priesthood and how it came about that you decided to sacrifice many worldly goods for what many would call a higher calling.
As I just introduced a little bit just a second ago, in my understanding of suffering and that, God does not will us to suffer. But this is it's just the medicine is more poison, more harsh than the corruption or the
medicine
sickness,
doesn't always taste good,
or the ailment.
Yes,
that's all it is. That's actually a beautiful nutshell answer to that. It's in that. in my journey, you see, I became very receptive, and from learning from the Lord and my imitation of Christ, because excuse me, my imitation of Christ, because this is the thing where, as my second round of the Bible, and then I just started to focus on the New Testament. Then that's then and then I was informed, inspired to work on my imitation of Christ, because I realized where I was, where I should be, that comparison thing in light of Jesus and his attitude towards others and his teachings and the loving. I became an interior person. I became a very interior person. I was very receptive, and that dependency and knowing, being with God, inevitably it's Alpha Omega. He's the first and he's the last. And all he was waiting for is my yes. And in that yes, I started the journey and was always open. So whatever door God opens for me, I would never shut it. So on that note, by that time I was in the work field, I was working and what have you, and I started to go to Mass because apparently beforehand, before my encounter, I actually stopped going to church, like a very bad Maronite. And and so on that note, when I started going back, I started to humiliate myself to humble myself. I was working on that pride factor to become humble. I saw how it's crept up on me. This is in light of the gospel of my Lord, my journey with my Lord. So the key thing here is to focus that what I got from that, I had to imitate Christ. And this actually now I preach it in a more structural manner, in a sense where what comes with baptism is a personal calling, vocation to be Christ-like. And you read the Bible and you do your checklist. And this is your personal thing where you start to grow up to be Christ-like. What's the use? You're smart and talented and what have you, and you're not Christ-like. So that is the foundation of everything. I was actually questioned about that when I was a brother. Because being a missionary, you take vows like monks, etc., etc. And in that, I was challenged with the question, what if you leave? What if they have a fallout, etc.? It's happened with others in the history, etc. I said, I'll still do what I'm doing now. That's why I'm bringing this up, you see. I'll still do what I'm doing now. What do you can't be a priest anymore? I said to him, no, this is not the foundational life of mine. My foundational life is imitating Christ. I'll still do that no matter what I am. Look at St. Mary of the Cross.
Yeah.
If she was ostracized, call it what you want, and she still did what she was imitating Christ.
Yeah.
That was the foundation, and she still had the mindset of a consecration still there. Not like Martin Luther, he threw that out, he threw it all out.
Yeah.
So that's where I beg to differ on that note, because you stay imitating Christ, and the fact that you believed in priesthood, and you still have the mindset of priesthood, even if you're ostracized, even if you're called up on something, etc. So in my journey, I was listening to him. I started focusing, and I was walking. I'll become a new person. I started to read and look and talk in light of with this framework. This is it. This is the foundation. This is everyone that's viewing, watching, listening. I hope if they take anything from my gibberish, they take this beautiful message. And even if my accent puts you off.
Not at all.
So, any questions on that note before? Oh, yeah. You know, when I was doing that, I started going to the church, and someone invited me there was a spiritual group in Our Lady of Lebanon, because that was my parish in Harris Park. Okay, and I'd go there. So that's it. Besides my home where I was brought up, my spiritual home, like Jesus literally put to everyone, made it very clear to everyone, to the Pharisees, to the scribes, to everybody, that his father's house was the place of worship, place of etc., the temple. So that was my spiritual home. And I was like, religiously going.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
And of course, experiencing the Maronite rite by this stage, yes?
Now, there was a shift from that, and so I was introduced. I was going every day, actually.
Yeah.
I started to go every day. Where I am, my disciples are, so all that, because I had my encounter with the Eucharist itself, the Lord himself in the Eucharist. We'll come to that in a minute. Actually, no, we'll come to that now, because that's before my vacation.
Yeah, please.
Because apparently I was dedicated, and I was so devoted to the rosary. I was praying rosary in my room. I had a shrine in my room. It still is. When I became a priest, my mum, God rest her soul, she added more pictures and icons on in my shrine in my bedroom, my display, that beautiful display, and I'd be religiously praying the rosary every day, and from that, I asked Mary, my mum, our spiritual mother, the spiritual mother of the church, the mother of Jesus of Nazareth. That's historical. See the difference. I asked her to take me by my hand and lead me to her son. I don't know. I keep also that very moment how I was so connected with her that at that stage, and still I was questioning. I want a clear black and white cut connection. Yeah. No interference. I want to know him. I want him. Because, and one day I was at the church. It was a daily mass, and they were celebrating with daily masses at the back altar. There was a back altar to the main in Our Lady of Lebanon. It used to face the sacristy. There and then I had my communion, and went on the side in front of the font, the spiritual font, baptismal font, and I knelt. I reflected before I consumed my Lord. There and then, the Eucharist, I felt warm in my mouth. It stood, not laid, stood at the top of my mouth, and I felt warmth in that moment there and then. And this is the awakening, if you can call it that, to the next level, the physical awakening. There and then, that's why I always now push the notion that there's a higher level also to faith. And I say, because everyone does have faith, that's why they go to church. There is a faith. The awakening part is you start living in the knowing, which is faith, and then there's knowing. When you walk into the church, you're not going and letting the environment, the coziness, or if it's noisy, deter you not from knowing that the Lord is there. This is the thing. This becomes a full-on knowing, not just faith. There's a level that I challenge anyone, even Shabda Reish on this, to ask for it from our Lord. It is wow. Yeah. And from then I moved on. I started, the next door that opened up to me after the journey, cut a long story short, and it wasn't long enough as it is. There's that spiritual group called MAM, the Marian Apostolic Movement. It's not Maronite by foundation. It is actually, I think, Roman Catholic.
Okay.
Yeah. But so from there, someone invited me to that a night session, if you want to call that a meeting or catch up, and apparently it's very spiritual by nature. Even the events and its prime tool to help people wake up or to empower people is actually life testimonies. Life testimonies. They're wow. Yeah. They're genuine, especially they're genuine. You pick them. You pick them and they touch you. Yes. And that helped a lot. So I started going, I knew God opened this up for me, so that became an environment for me, which I found out later also, fostered vocations on all levels, not necessarily priesthood or but even marriage. So that was where I started to get some sort of more formation, if you want to call it that, or empowered more. And I started to contribute also to the life of the church. One of the precepts, apparently, I found out later. I was doing them before having the precepts. Apparently, the precepts were just guides. They're really guides, where normally someone whose faith is awake, they normally do they're supposed to do them.
Yeah,
you see?
Just naturally attracted to
them. Because you start to contribute to the life of the church because you're believing that much that the Lord is there. And so what happens? There's this connected dot thing where if where I am, my disciples are. If you're believing the Lord is the Eucharist, so therefore even the walls that hold the Lord, He's actually holding the walls. You start to think differently. You know what I mean? As people get scared that the Eucharist is about to fall, but He's holding you. See, like the Ark of the Covenant, when King David conquered and brought peace to he came back with the Ark Covenant, looking to build a tent to prepare for the temple, in preparation for the temple. And someone comes up, they thought the Ark is about to fall. They went up to hold it, thinking they're holding God up, so to speak. So, and that apparently, because that's why you start to understand, you see. There's a shift of vision. There's a shift. And the vocation, my vocation there and then, I still wasn't clear for me I was going to be a priest. At all. Literally. And it's later on, things happen. I went to a Bible studies in St. Charbel, and there was two vocations there, which I think vocations contribute a lot to ignite other candles, if you want vocational candles, and attending to that. Apparently they left, but I stayed.
Right. Interesting.
They were deacons, two deacons.
Really? Wow.
They were translating for a priest. I don't want to use the casual word. A priest that came he was fresh from Lebanon. Fresh from Lebanon. He was given Bible studies. I just knew very weak. I knew enough Arabic then. I don't know why. I still don't understand how my Arabic was so quickly developed. He started translating, and I started translating for the translator a little bit. But then actually, it was really, really good. And my vocation, I said to myself, I prayed. One of the nights as I was journeying and I was getting some sort of formation from the spiritual groups, etc., and Bible discussions, I prayed. I discovered, this is where my time came. I was right. I was on the fork of my life. I knew there and then that marriage is sacred, and when you put aside your corruption, your things that you discovered that corrupt us, put them aside and look at it objectively, look at it for what it's naturally God-given, created for. So I said to my Lord, you know me more than I know myself, which is best for me to serve you, considering my talent, gifts, call it what you want, or my frailty and my weaknesses, call it what you want, and I slept after praying for this from my heart. What do you want to know?
Well, I obviously you went all the way, Father. You were ordained. No,
God had a sense of humor.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The next day, someone made a pass at me. I thought that was the answer.
Right.
Funny. I'm telling you, he had a sense of humor. I'm telling you, this is like unbelievable.
So you went through a period.
My story is unbelievable, really. Because I knew God opened it. I thought there was a challenge here. Because the thing is, I said I went with it. It, and we started to talk and everything, full on. We were on the same page in regards to faith. The marriage cleanliness, if you want, the purity, it's proper context, all that, and we were working genuine. We asked for a hand in marriage, and so all of a sudden. I asked him, we asked, like the traditional Lebanese, I had to actually dig that up, what they consider as a Lebanese cultural thing, because I was very, very Western-minded. And then, take parents over to her parents, because her parents are very much still the accent, as you portrayed or said, that your parents, they had that all, and the way they do it, and how would you call it, what's it called? I lost it. All the negative parts of cultures too. They have it all in there. It's all mixed and cocktail stuff. But nevertheless, they asked for her hand in marriage. Her dad was happy. Her mum passed away a while back. Good. Then we worked towards being stable and steady, getting to know each other. Courting, it's called.
Right.
So nevertheless, guess what happened? Then I had someone refuse from the family.
Really?
One of the siblings.
I see.
He became very deviant.
Yep.
He started to. Then there was a threat, a full-on threat.
Interesting.
The funny thing is, to cut a long story short, let's not go there. What I did,
because the rosary needs to start.
my siblings lives next door, and what I did, because I knew God answered my prayer, and this is what He wants. So I thought there's just obstacles, and my faith is being a test, etc., etc. I started to hang around next door, and from there, hang around. I said, no way, I'm not gonna. I'll stick, and no matter how long it takes, and unless she gets married and she's before the altar and gets married, that's the only time I'm sure. See, I'm starting to relate ecclesial and God's presence in the ecclesial and the sacraments. I started to realize I'm aware of it now. By that time, that's why I said that. Then I was waiting to see which is my calling. So I went with this. Then she gets married sooner. Later, it was interesting. But then that's it. Then I started to question, why did I go through this? Because of the evil apparently that I got encountered by getting. While we were getting to know her, and there was, evil. Really evil.
Yeah,
it's not just superstition. It's not. It's actually bad.
Yeah, wow.
Sorcery and whatever. Anyway, nevertheless, then my vocation. Someone came from overseas. Yohanna is a hermit now. He came from overseas. He was given a Bible studies at St. Charbel's overnight. Even though it was in Arabic, he simplified it, and he did it. He did it in poetically. And me, I was introduced to Lebanese poetry earlier, a while back with my dad. My dad loves it. I kept questioning, what is he saying? What is he saying? That's how I discovered how analogy works.
Right.
Because there's heaps of it in poetry. So nevertheless, this particular priest, and I would say saintly in many ways, a lot of virtues you can see. He loved St. John the Beloved. Yohanna means John. And he opened up for me the book of Revelation, and then that's like, wow.
I love the book of Revelation.
He said, Parousia, why is everyone scared? If you're doing everything you're meant to be, if you're imitating Christ, you're working on yourself, and you have this encounter, the bride is waiting.
Yeah, amen.
For that encounter. And from that, wow, I came out, I spoke to him. I feel I have a vocation. And he told me, come tomorrow. It looks like everyone's, all lights are out, so to speak. Come tomorrow. I went the next day. The place was empty. The monastery is in Punchbowl. That was my original approach. Right. I never heard of missionaries before. That's when I went there. The place echoed. I even ended up in the boss's, the superior's office. No one was there. I turned back. I walked back. I said, what's happening? There's no one there. So another challenge. And I left. The next day, I hear the calling saying that missionaries took over looking after Our Lady of Lebanon, because there was a fallout and there was a week shut down, etc. That was like wild for Maronites. And we're not going to delve into that. And then I asked who this priest is. There was so authenticity in his natural, because like I said to you, I focus on psychology and what have you, and body language, etc. And I saw in this person, he's full on genuine. He felt weak, frail. You can see frailty there because he was nervous, and he knew he's now looking after a parish, one of the biggest parishes in the Desperia, and coming out of conflict too, and that in itself, that kind of that witnessing for me, I said to him, who is he? I never heard of him. He said, they told me, he's a Krami or Kramist. I said, what's that? He says, a missionary. What do you mean missionary? They said, I like how would you compare them? Because all I knew is either a parish priest or monk.
Yep.
I didn't want to be a parish priest. I didn't want to be too administrative.
Yep.
So I was actually enticed by Saint Charbel's life anyway when I was still young. When I was young, with the black and white TVs.
Yeah.
That's how far back.
Yeah, wow.
Him praying, he's kneeling there before a cross, or it felt like you're before a blank watching paint dry.
Yep.
Yeah, that kind of feeling. You haven't encountered God, and so therefore this is how you process it.
Mm-hmm.
Nevertheless, I questioned. They told me they're missionaries. They're like Jesuits. Jesuits are like the Pope's black army, and we are the Patriarch's black army. So therefore, we were born in the cradle of Hostel, as I said, where you have the image in that area there. Mm-hmm. Mid-Australia, mid-Lebanon, mid-Lebanon, coast, on the coast, above on the hill. What happens is we were born to fight Protestantism, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
Yeah, because all our villages, they were approaching villages where they're not informed, they're not educated. Our mums and tatas and jiddus, as they say in Arabic. Yep. And they were winning a lot of them over by being person-centered approach and showing really personal care over the people. So it wins a lot of people because being community-minded, that works a lot.
Yeah.
So we were born, then the patriarch at the time, with the bishop known now for the birth of the Quranists, or the congregation of the Lebanese Maronite missionaries. I've lost it all because I'm trying to speak fast because of the time.
Yes.
No other reason, trust me. Yohanna, Father or Bishop Yohanna, Emirate Bishop, Archbishop, Yohanna Habib. Yohanna Habib is John the Beloved.
Yeah.
Translation. So then the concept of with Father Estefan being the first superior, if you want to call that. So that's when the missionaries are born. I said to myself that I actually wanted to become a monk. Then I started to reflect on the possibly missionaries. And by reflecting on possibly missionaries, I said, this is like, I never thought about that. Then I was inspired, and a thought came to my mind saying to me, why are you coming to me? Because I was still influenced by Saint Charbel, you see. Right. And to override that wasn't easy. Then I got the understanding, this is in my heart from my Lord, why are you coming to me by yourself? Mm. And it dawned on me when missionaries like my parents, and that's when I went there for the novice, just for them to get to know me and me get to know them, to drink, as they would say, the spirituality of the missionaries. Yeah, so that's when then what really, really, really ignited me, and wow, is there is a way, because we're faith-filled, and there's, as you know, there's grottos all over Lebanon for Our Lady, for all the saints, except in villages, in strongholds of Christianity everywhere. So what we do as missionaries in winter season, we target locations, villages, okay, or LGAs,
yes,
of particular suburbs, or particular towns, and we call the bishop. And as soon as he knows the Quranists are coming over, he's head over heels. He calls all these parish priests. Really? They put everything aside, hand the keys to the missionaries.
Yep.
And all you do is take care of the sick.
Wow.
That's all we do. We go there, we go to the ground. We actually partner with the missionary sisters. They look after Our Lady of Lebanon, not Our Lady, the Holy Family School in Harris Park that is adjacent to Our Lady of Lebanon parish or church, co-cathedral. What we do, we plan together for these onslaughts,
okay.
mission,
Right.
empowering people, villages. So to answer that original charism that we possess, or it possesses us, let us add.
I see. And
so then we do that. We go down the ground, we knock doors.
Yep.
Now they know we're not Jehovah's. They know who we are because we already told them beforehand. We knock doors and we start to tell them, that we give them the 10-day plan. And what we do, we give them formation. The young, the youth, which is older, the teens, I'd add, the teens, the youth, and the adults, mass every day, Bible studies open and Bible studies at night. What we do with the youth, we hype them up and we prepare them to meet in the center, the youth center, or what do you call it, the sports center, all together with all the surrounding LGAs. And what we do, we go through these challenges, spiritual or social, together, all together, mingled. It's wow. You should see.
And so you were getting heavily involved in this missionary work, and obviously the community as well. And it clearly had a very positive effect on you.
Definitely. Yeah, we have missions all over the world, and this is the thing. It's hard because especially the older you are, it's harder for you to learn languages. I've been in Argentina. I had to learn when I was in I was in the 50s, learning Spanish.
Yeah,
it's
wow.
a challenge and a half for me. Obviously didn't stay there too long, a year and a half.
Yep.
I did my maths within a month in Spanish.
Wow.
Espanol. I even picked up on the accent of the location. Yeah, so our location, we have I think that's the oldest mission outside of Lebanon.
Really?
So what we do, one of the things, their commitments is following the Maronites in particular. At least you got a home, charity begins at home. So I think because of our laid-back Catholic or cradle Catholic mentality, mindset, we find that to be a big problem. It's actually a big problem. And everyone, from the point of baptism, for example, that's the only time they come in church is either get married or carried to the tomb.
Yep.
And so they journey through there. So
they're missing out on so much.
Back, and because they neglect that original calling, and they found all their life-changing decisions based on good intentions, ill-informed, uninformed good intentions. And that's why they go for dire straits. And they question why that happens to them because they lack that. This is what missionary is all about. And this is what empowering heavenly people go back and get grounded, start working on your foundation. Start working on the foundation, the cornerstone, the neglected.
Excellent. So how many years have you been a priest now, Father John Elias?
2006.
Fantastic. Well,
5th of August, evening.
And from everything you've told us, I'm guessing it has been nothing but a wonderful experience for you.
Yeah, it's different in Australia. It's different because laid-back people, how do you promote to people that don't feel they need God?
Yeah.
And it's harder because when you're in a war-torn country, it's different.
Yeah,
Believe you me, there's downs to it, but the ups are more. They're much more because you can see how the fact the dispersing, the leaving, migrating with this upbringing in a war-torn country, survival mode into a country that's laid back and trying to help. Hey, you're going to miss the boat. Wake up! Look what's happening. Look now. Look what we're happening in real time now. So things like that. The awakening is because we took so things for granted. It's not funny. Yeah. Being a missionary, helping people now, stop taking things for granted.
Yeah,
you're here for a short time, and no one knows. Some shorter than others.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Father John Elias Kady, thank you for your priesthood, and thank you for your time today, and thank you very much for opening up about some of your journey. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Matthew. Shout out there for Charbel.
Yes.
For the opportunity, and God bless with your mission.
Thank you.
Of course, Parousia.
Yeah, amen. All right. So, I think you and I will have to get on another time in the future and have another chat. There's a lot more to talk about. Well, this has been another Parousia podcast. Thank you and God bless.
Likewise.
Welcome to the Parousia Podcast, inviting expert guest speakers each week to discuss their own faith journey, as well as a different aspect of the Catholic faith, every Wednesday morning at 8 a.m, live on the Voice of Charity.